welcome into the John Cast podcast with the abrupt intro ending there, but welcome in. I'm so happy that you're listening to today's podcast, and we'll get to today's guest in just a little bit, but I wanted to remind everybody, me and Julio in Madison is the place to be if you want $4 margaritas on Tuesdays and Thursdays. We had our podcast party with Wisconsin volleyball player Dana Redke there just the other week. And if you want to check out me and Julio, it's in Madison. I've got information at johncastpodcast.com. Also brought to you by Ian's Pizza in Madison. They've got the classic macaroni and cheese pizza, and Ian's and I are working on our next promotion, so stay tuned for that. But today's guest is a pro golfer from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. He's currently on the PGA Tour Champions and will be in Madison for this year's AmFam Championship, June 10th through the 12th. Welcome in Skip Kendall to the podcast. Skip, how are you?
I'm doing great, John. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining the podcast. I'm super excited for you to be here today. What do you like most about playing the AmFam Championship in Madison?
Oh, listen, it's, I live here in Florida now, but Wisconsin will always be home. I love the people there, and just coming back home and playing is always a thrill for me.
And the crowds there. I mean, the one thing that blew me away about the PGA Tour, the Champions Tour, and the crowds in this tournament in particular is just how much accessibility a fan gets to you get to go up and watch really good golfers at a really reasonable price at a really good distance. It's just so much fun for the fans.
Well, I totally agree. I tell people all the time, it's so different than the PGA Tour. The Champions Tour is so much more laid back. You know, guys are interacting with people a lot more. And I think by 50, we've kind of figured that out. So, if I was a business out there and I wanted to, get close to players, I would absolutely think about, bringing clients out there and having fun. I mean, for instance, you go to the pairings party on Tuesday night and there'll be 50 players there. And, on the PGA Tour, it's like pulling teeth to try to get players to a pairings party or anything like that. So it's a different deal. And, we realize we're an entertainment tour and we want to show the fans and give them a good show. That's what we're out there for.
Yeah, and it definitely is a good show. It's so much fun, like I said, plus the celebrity foursome on Saturday. And by the way, how about this? You can win a pair of tickets if you're listening to this podcast right now by answering this AmFam trivia question. Which player is the only player to win the AmFam Championship more than one time? The first correct answer in my DMs on Twitter, that's at John Arias Radio, JONARIAS Radio, will win a pair of tickets to the AmFam Championship in Madison. You can't answer that, Skip. You're not eligible.
Answer that?
No, you've already. Nope, you're already there. So, let me ask you about. Let me ask you a golf question because I'm a golfer. I love to golf. I'm not very good, but one thing that has obviously stood out and has been a topic of conversation in the golf community for a very long time is the equipment. So, in your opinion, because you got onto the tour in the late 80s, I want to say, right? 1987, I think it was.
Well, that was my first event. 93 was my rookie year, though.
Okay. So 93 was your rookie year. So how much, in your opinion, has golf equipment changed over the last 20 or 30 years?
Oh, I mean, I think it's changed a lot. I mean, obviously, technology just gets better and better every year. And every time they come out with something new, they're always making, tweaks to it to make it better. I mean, look at TaylorMade. They came out with a carbon face. Although I think there was carbon faces, maybe 10 years ago that TaylorMade did. They just didn't really promote it, like they are now. But that being said, the equipment has definitely gotten better. It wasn't like we were playing with, equipment that wasn't very good, when I got on tour almost 30 years ago. I think the significant change has been in the ball. I think the ball is what's really changed. That's what's making it go exponentially further with higher club head speeds. So while that may not help the amateur player, the professional, you can see now that, guys are just hitting it so far. And when you hear on TV that, oh, he's hitting smooth 8-iron from 190 or something like that, well, it's true. I mean, these guys are really long and hitting it really far. And so that's definitely a factor. I think the ball has been the biggest factor, though.
So let me ask you this. How much do you think it's impacted your game as you've gotten older? How much from that 1993 first year on the tour to where we are now, like as far as like ball speed and distance and things like that?
Yeah, well, I mean, I can give you a pretty good example here. So in 1993, I averaged just about 260 yards off the tee, which was actually top 100 in driving distance on the PGA Tour. I think I was like 95th that year. So the longest guy that year was John Daly, and he was hitting it 282. So really, there was only 22-yard difference between me and the longest guy in the PGA Tour. Now they only take those, those measurements really on 2 holes out there. They usually go back to back, so you have downwind, into the wind, if that's the case. I think now it's a much wider span. So while I may be hitting, I mean, I'm hitting it way further than 260 yards, but exponentially, these guys are hitting it so much further. And I mean, if I went to play a PGA Tour event earlier this year in Puerto Rico, and I mean, these guys are hitting it 50 yards by me, minimum, and I'm not hitting it shorter. I'm hitting it longer than I was back then, way longer. So it just, with, like I said, with higher club speeds, the way, the equipment is, the way the drivers are, but the ball has really just, gotten to where the point where these guys are just hitting it really long, really long.
That's crazy. Is there anything, do you think anything should be done? Should they, and we've heard this too, conversation, right? Do something to the golf ball itself. Is that a solution, or what, how do you feel about that?
I don't think so. I mean, I think the only tournament that could possibly even do anything or even try to do anything would be like the Masters, saying, hey, if you guys want to play this year, this is the ball you're going to be using. I mean, I can't see anyone else doing that. I don't see manufacturers dialing back the golf ball. I don't even see, other players saying, hey, we should dial back the golf ball. This is getting out of control. So, you still have to get the ball in the hole. And I think that's the main thing. You still have to putt, scoring really, I'm not sure it's even gotten that much lower, to be quite honest. I mean, even though guys are hitting it so much further, while an 8,000 yard course isn't so daunting now, still, I mean, scoring really hasn't, gotten to the point where, guys are shooting 30 or 35 under par per tournament. So if you look at, the great tournaments or the great courses, Harbor Town, Colonial, those courses, which aren't that long, or even Pebble Beach, it's the same score that wins every year. It's not like it's, gotten out of control in that respect.
Yeah, that's a great point. The scoring is kind of been staying the same. Did a good job balancing that act. Golf. I want to ask you about your how you got to where you are, basically. So when you were growing up, you were playing soccer, you were playing basketball, and you were playing golf. So
Yeah.
who were your sports heroes growing up, and how did you end up on golf?
Wow. Well, I actually, soccer and baseball were my best sports. I didn't really play baseball in high school because I had to make a decision between baseball and golf. The sports at my high school were at the same time. So I chose golf at the time. Even though I loved baseball, I felt like, here's the one thing for me. I felt like if I was going to exceed in something, I didn't want to rely, even though I loved playing team sports, I didn't want to rely on other people. And so golf was all me, and the ball was just sitting there, and I had to, make it happen. And if I played baseball, I had 8 other guys on the team. If I played soccer, there was 10 other guys, including me, on the team. And I don't know, even though I love those sports, I love watching sports, I just felt like the individual sport for me was going to be, the way to go. And while I was okay growing up in golf in Wisconsin, as soon as I got to college, I realized very quickly that, man, I was like low man on the totem pole. It was a big difference going out west and playing against guys from California, Arizona that play all year round. I had a lot of catching up to do, and really I was just an average college player. But I always saw improvement, and that's kind of what kept me going.
That's interesting. So an average college player. So how'd you make the jump to be able to be, playing golf for as long as you have been?
Yeah, well, it was a lot of hard work. I just ate, slept, drank golf 24/7 after I got done with college. I felt like, okay, so I got my degree. It was one of those, here's the work gig thing, or do I feel like I have potential to play golf? And I felt like I did. And I wanted to make sure that, I gave it everything that I had. So I didn't want to look back with any regrets. And I did. And it took me 5 years, 5 years from when I graduated college to get my PGA Tour card. Graduated spring of '87, fall of 92 is when I got my card. So 93 was my rookie year.
That's crazy. So who were those sports heroes then? If you were playing those other sports and eventually settled in on golf, who did you look up to as a kid?
Oh gosh, well, I mean, Arnold Palmer was always one of my favorites to, to watch, to see. I remember trying to get, videos of him. I remember also watching a Hank Haney video with Mark O'Meara when I was, I think, in high school. I think I wore it out. I was always, I was just, for whatever reason, that one just always struck me. And I thought it was so well done that I just kept watching it over and over again. And it was funny because ironically, right after college, I started working with Hank Haney, and then Mark O'Meara basically became kind of a friend. So, after I got on tour, started playing with him, and, he lived when I moved to Orlando, he lived right next door and, in the community next to me. And so we ended up playing some golf together and, just got to know him pretty good. And, so it was kind of funny how that all turns out, but, definitely, I would say soccer. I mean, I didn't really know much about it at the time. This is back in Wisconsin when soccer wasn't really big. So I couldn't get anything like watching like Premier League or Champions League. You didn't get any of that back when I was growing up. So, and there really wasn't any soccer in the US. I just loved playing.
Wow. That's cool. Okay. So let me ask you some golf related questions. Now, this may seem like this part of the podcast, Skip, is me just trying to get pointers, which it very well could be, but I think they're interesting questions for all types of golfers. So let me, okay. So first of all, when you're playing golf, I think there are a lot of amateurs that are always like, I'll just use me as an example. I don't want to talk for anybody else, but you're thinking about, okay, is my position right? Is my hands right? What's going on? What did I do with the last hole? How far back does my backswing need to be? Don't forget about the follow through, watch the ball, keep your head. There's 1,000 things chattering in your head during a round of golf. So for someone like you, who's been so successful at golf, who's worked so hard at it, who's been, on the tours for so long, what kind of chatter do you have in your head? Does it exist?
Well, of course it does.
Okay.
But I would say that, so I've been doing a lot of coaching now. And so one of the things that you're trying to get away from is that chatter. You need to quiet your mind when you're out there on the golf course. And, all of that starts with the practice that you put in and the way you do it. That's the tedious side of golf, the training side. So when you get on the golf course, your mindset is something completely different. You have to trust that you've already put in the work, and that when you get out there, you can't be thinking about, golf swing. You can't be thinking about putting stroke. It changes when you get out on the golf course. Sure, you might have one or two keys, but that should be about it. When you get to the practice tee, when you have time to work on your putting short game, that's the time you put in, and you have to trust then when you get on the golf course that that's already in place.
So that sounds to me like there's no hope for me whatsoever.
It's said than done, but that's kind of the way it goes, and certainly, when I coach people now, that's really what we work on hard is mindset and making sure that, you're all ready to go before you even get out there.
Let me ask you about that coaching, because like you said, that's part of what you do now. How did you get into that side of golf, and how do you enjoy it so far?
Well, probably about 6 or 7 years ago now, I was working with my coach at the time, Brian Mogg, and there was a 13-year-old girl that was coming to see him who I'd seen there quite often, and she was like a phenom. I mean, she was incredible. And her mom approached me one day about, helping her out, showing her. She felt like, she would come for the lesson, take an hour lesson from Brian. But that was it. They'd work on swing, and, she wanted all the other stuff. She wanted putting, she wanted short game, she wanted course management, she wanted, mindset, all the mental things that I had learned along the way, from all the coaches that I had worked with too. And I understood, but I was like, well, wait a second, I'm not coaching, I'm not doing this, I'm still playing. And kind of thought it over, talked to Brian, and kind of off we went. And she ended up winning 2 AJGA events that year at 13 years old. And it was just kind of an eye opener to me, like, wow, I think I can do this. I would say this, not all good players in a sport can become, good coaches. you kind of have to have a knack for it. I feel like I do. And so since then, it's really kind of just been word of mouth, but haven't done much marketing or anything. But it's, of myself anyway. But it's been really nice. I work with, kids as young as 9 years old. She's an incredible little golfer, all the way up to, there's a couple guys on the Champions Tour that I work with on their putting, and everyone in between. Yesterday I just worked with Hideki Matsuyama and Charles Schwartzel, and I have two girls here in town this week on the Epson Tour playing. They're playing in Orlando. That I'm gonna, this tournament starts tomorrow. That I'll go see, and we worked, all day Monday together. So it's been a lot of fun. Have a lot of nice college players, young professionals, juniors as well, and it's been really fun for me. I've been home quite a little bit more often, now that I'm not playing quite as much. But I've built that up, and it's been really fun. And now I'd like to play a little bit too myself. So.
Yeah, that's awesome. Where can people find out more about your teaching, your coaching?
Well, I am at the Marriott World Center in Orlando. The golf course is called Hawks Landing. We are the Orlando Golf Academy. And you can always reach me through my email for sure. It's skendall0909@gmail.com.
All right, excellent. If people want to get involved with that side, that's awesome. That's really cool that you've kind of found that to stay within the golf community, and it's something that you enjoy. And I bet you it's really rewarding to see that 9-year-old, that 13-year-old implement something that you told them and see it work as a success. And be like, yes, thank you. I do know something.
Well, it's kind of funny because when I was preparing for the Champions Tour as well, I played a lot on the Corn Ferry Tour when I was 48, 49. I just wanted to stay competitive, for when I turned 50, to get out there and do it. So the funny thing was, you go up and down the range tee at a Corn Ferry event, and the kids out there, they all look like they're number one in the world. The sound is great. The swings are awesome. You just don't know the names yet. You will, but you just don't know the names yet. They're young, and they're going to be the next generation of tour players. But when I got out there, playing in the events, the vast majority of them, they could have been All-Americans in college. They still didn't know how to play golf. It was really unbelievably eye-opening to me. And their caddies would actually come up to me. Some of the caddies were, older caddies that caddied on the PGA Tour for a long time, and now trying to get a young player back out onto the PGA Tour so they can get back out there. And they'd come up to me after the round. They go, "Hey, Skip, can you go talk to my guy, about that shot you hit into number 7, that bump into the hill and then, up onto the back tier. I mean, my guy doesn't have that shot. He doesn't even know what to do." And I'm like, "Well, I'm playing against him. Why would I want to go tell him what to do? I mean, I know." But, I said, "Listen, of course, I mean, if he wants to come over and ask me a couple questions, whatever, I'm glad to help him out, no problem." I think that was the biggest eye opener, other than working with that 13-year-old that I did. That was the biggest eye opener to me about, actually playing the game. They were so talented. They could shoot 65 any day. The problem is they were so inconsistent because course management, situational golf, and what to do at certain times, most of them anyway, didn't have any idea. And the ones that did figured it out and would finish top 25 in the money list, and off they go to the tour. But I saw so many guys with the physical talent to play the PGA Tour that just never, they couldn't crack an egg. And it was all, it's all up in there.
Okay. So, that's interesting. So I've got 2 more questions for you. And one has to do with what you just said. You said course management is, just one of the areas that perhaps some of these players weren't proficient in yet. So I'm kind of wondering if you had to tell one pointer to a golfer out on the driving range, the cliche one being keep your head down, right? You always hear keep your head down. Is there a swing thought or a feeling in the swing that if you were able to relay to somebody, what would be the number one thing you'd tell somebody on the driving range? And wow. I guess it depends on what, you see, but generally speaking.
Of course. I mean, that's a tough question to answer because there's a lot that goes with it. But, the thing that I see most probably, and I think probably 20, 30 years ago, it was really accepted. And some of the things that were done was to move laterally, move side to side. get over to your right side, get over to your left side. Well, nowadays, that's not what guys are doing. And one of the reasons they're hitting it so far is because if you drew a circle around your belt buckle, that belt buckle stays pretty much in that circle throughout the golf swing. It's the way the sacrum works. It's the way your body works. It's all proper body movement now. And that's why one of the reasons guys are hitting it so much further. The more lateral movement you have, the more of a power drain it is. And yeah, you'll hit it straight. And that's what the game was maybe 30 years ago, just get it down the fairway, plod your way along. Well, now it's a power game, especially at the pro level. So, you've got to be able to create that speed in the golf swing, and moving that sacrum, moving the body correctly is probably the biggest thing. No lateral movement, or not much lateral movement. Put it down.
Draw the circle around the belt and then stay within the circle. Okay, got it. Final question for you. I read that you're a Packers fan, being from Wisconsin, obviously. So what do you think of the Packers, the offseason, getting Aaron Rodgers signed up, and how do you like the Packers in 2022?
Oh, I watch it from afar. I'm a huge Packer fan, obviously. I love everything about Green Bay. Losing Devontae Adams obviously hurts a lot, but they'll be fine. I mean, you have Aaron Rodgers. I mean, when you have a guy like that at quarterback and running your team, I think that you're going to be just fine. I don't think there'll be any issues there. Obviously, they brought in some good ones, some good wide receivers. It looked like they shored up a lot of other issues that they were going to have too in the draft. And, I'm looking forward to a really good year this year.
Yeah. I think they're trying to build that defense, get that defense ready post Aaron Rodgers, and hopefully it starts to gel with Aaron Rodgers. It might be like the perfect combination of Rodgers led team with a good defense. Then when Rodgers leaves, you have maybe that defense that can help out whoever the quarterback will be at that point.
Hope so.
Yeah. All right, Skip. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me here on the podcast. Enjoy the AmFam Championship in Madison, June 10th through the 12th. And a reminder to anyone who wants to win tickets, just DM me on Twitter. That's at John Audius Radio. And you can win a pair of tickets by answering who is the only player to win the AmFam Championship more than one time. First correct answer wins a pair of tickets to the AmFam Championship. And Skip, quiet. Do not help anybody. Don't.
I look forward to seeing everybody. I really love coming home. I look forward to seeing everybody out at the AmFam.
All right, Skip. Thank you so much for the time. Have a good one.
Thanks, John. You too. Take care.
All right, there you go. Skip Kendall. That was awesome. What a cool guy. I love that he's gotten into the coaching side of things too. I'm just trying to get tips too. I'm just trying to get tips for my golf swing. I haven't golfed since, not that anybody particularly cares about my golf game, but since September or August of last year. I need to get out on the course. It's been way too long. Once again, thanks to Skip Kendall. Thanks to the AmFam Championship. Pair of tickets at stake. Once again, DM me on Twitter. The only player to win it more than once, and you can be taking home a pair of tickets to the American Family Insurance Championship. Thank you to Ian's Pizza. Thank you to me and Julio. And thank you to you, the listener, for listening to today's John Cast podcast. Goodbye.